Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. This is the 22nd of January. Letting folks get in there. Well, I like to start the little short show with a little bit of some rhythm. So if you guys hear some music in the beginning, it's because I want to get in the mood. I'm by myself. I can't really, interact with Ron, my co-host, in the later portion of the show. We have a great guest on later today. Someone's running for Congress, so please make sure you tune in tonight for an actual good interview with someone who is trying to do the work out there and run for office. So we're going to have a really hard-hitting and honestly a constructive conversation. It's not going to be biting, but it'll be, I don't hold back when I talk to, Congress people, senators, Supreme Court justices, or candidates. No matter who they are, it's going to be a very fortuitous, that's our word of the day, fortuitous conversation. But yeah, no, it's from our last episode. Of course, the world is still off its axis, and we just kind of come here to just let it all breathe, right? Like, because sometimes, you're watching CNN and you got Scott Jennings there like, that's okay. You should be happy ICE is kidnapping people. Then you got, MS Now, formerly MSNBC, and you got Joe Scarborough on for 20 hours a week. And he's a failed politician, and he takes up the most real estate on the only liberal network. So this is why you come here, right? We're trying to build this thing out, right? I have mad respect for everybody else that did this stuff before we did, which is the reason why we try to do a podcast, to make sure that we can talk about politics from a Black and brown lens, through a North Carolina lens, through a Union County lens, but also how what happens at the federal level does impact me, right? Because it came down to a Supreme Court decision for me to be considered a human being or for me to have full rights. So what happens at the federal level absolutely is very important to marginalized people. A lot of time we're told, don't worry about that, only worry about local. But again, a lot of us are our actual lives or our livelihoods or being seen as a fully human beings starts at the federal level, starts and ends at the federal level. So we can talk about the sheriff and the coroner and whatnot, but also to remember we can be erased in this project because, again, don't forget, America is a project. All right. So yeah, guys. Let's see. We got Lorena in the comments saying some bad news as usual. Let's see here. I'm assuming it's that they arrested Nakia, the attorney and activist. Is that what you're saying? And I mean, it could be something else. I just saw that in Minnesota, literally right before I jumped on, that they had arrested the organizer and the activist and the protester, Nakia Levy. I forget her last name, but she's the Black organizer that led that protest inside that church, inside the city's church, inside of St. Paul. The guy, Don Lemon, basically intimated they're going to charge him with the Ku Klux Klan Act. And this is the backwards nature of everything else. So, it's crazy out there. So, but before we get started, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the Radical Roots podcast, either on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the places. We're everywhere. Please make sure you do. This is how we stay independent. This is how we're able to continue to do this and bring this to you guys. We've been growing week over week, so we're very happy for the folks that have been liking, sharing, commenting. We just got some emails right before I got on the air that made me feel really good. So that's fantastic. Hello, Lorena. Again, trying to get it right. How you doing there, my friend? It's we're growing, and again, we want to stay independent. We don't want, I'm already talking to a potential donor or sponsor, I should say, a sponsor of the show, and I think the content's getting better. We're getting better, right? Trying on this early show has been Herculean, to say the least. It hasn't been as easy as laying on a bed, but it's challenging me to push the Radical Roots to become bigger, better, and something that actually can impact those, whether it be in North Carolina or across the country, or folks that were telling us that they were watching from international waters or across the pond. So that's what we're trying to do. Anyway, so not to take too much of your time up here. Of course, we're still dealing with ICE, baby, and even that version is kind of shitty because now Vanilla Ice, I don't know if you guys know, he's like full blown MAGA. He was just at Mar-a-Lago saying "Ice, baby," and Stephen Miller was like with his like Nosferatu face, like yes, good, ice, baby. And of course, Ice Barbie was there, Christy Nome, doggone Christy Nome. I shoot my dog, Christy Nome, so I don't care about you. 3 bullets in the face, Christy Nome. So, but this we knew this was going to happen. What I'm about to show you, there's been spillage. There's been spillage from these masked, violent race soldiers. That's what ICE agents are. They are the slave patrol, who then informed and mutated into the Nazis. But honestly, all fascism is just a violent check on democracy. On democracy. There's a reason why Confederates didn't want black, white, brown, and Indian people to intermingle. There's a reason why the British didn't want that to happen either. There's a reason why the colonialists didn't want that to happen. When people actually get together and stand for something, it puts a threat to the unified power of the few. So this is why Hitler hated cities. He hated Paris. He lambasted it. He said there's nothing but degenerates and lesbians and the evil people there. It sounds very familiar, right? And America has been plagued with that for a very, very long time. A very, very long time, since its inception, when it was stolen from natives, and then when it was crafted in the image of the Puritans, if you will. I mean, the religious zealots is what I call them. So the long tail of that would be you would have genocide and chattel slavery and apartheid for 100 years, and black codes and Jim Crow and lavender scare and war on all this stuff, right? This has always been a fascist nation that we keep trying to explain to people. But now, we've even got some folks who wear the badge of the slave patrol. Again, that's where the police were born out of. We have folks who would say, I back the blue. I back the blue. And this is what they're saying about what's happening to ICE. And let me know on the backside how you feel about this.
For many of us today is rhetoric of abolish ICE, or that there shouldn't be immigration enforcement. The truth is, immigration enforcement is necessary for our national security and for local security. But how it's done is extremely important. In fact, we have a long history of working exceptionally well with our federal partners, including ICE agents, and we have seen the best of them perform their job extremely well in the past. With that said, recently, as the last 2 weeks, we, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, preventing her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. This isn't just important because it happened to off-duty police officers, but what it did do is we know that our officers know what the Constitution is, they know what right and wrong is, and they know when people are being targeted, and that's what they were. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot in there, right? The very beginning, he says this is not a video, or this is not a statement saying that we need to abolish ICE. There's some good ones out there. I mean, he's a cop, right? So again, on this podcast, it's always a cab. I don't care if your daddy's a cop. I don't care if your brother's a cop. He's a good one. The system itself is rotten. So he starts off with that bullshit, right? Which is weird because he's leaning into how a kind of a colonial understanding of what protection is that, you know, certain people are a threat to other people, and our legitimacy is that we are that line between the most violent and or those who are deemed the most dangerous towards those who are seen the most precious. Hence the creation of police was we, the slave patrol, started right here in 1704, and before it's called North Carolina, it's called Providence, Carolina, meant to stop the violent, dangerous, licentious, black chained man from the white women, right? This is how gender's always been used. So he starts kind of with that colonial white supremacist logic that there is a valid use for this agency. But then goes into that, well, his agents, I mean, excuse me, his officers are now being accosted by the slave patrol. Who could have thought? He's sitting there in disbelief to a degree that it's only happening to his black and brown officers. I don't know if I could have seen that coming from a mile away. But this is the beast they built, and it's like what he's missing is there's almost some sort of a function within inside of law enforcement that allows these people, is just because they have police on their chest, because I don't know if you guys know, they have police on their chest now and not just ICE, because the connotation around ICE was so bad. So they have to have police now. They'll have ICE and small letters. There's almost some sort of a mechanism within inside of law enforcement policing that allows them to think that they're these rogue, Call of Duty characters. There must be something within inside of the system that makes these people who feel like once they don the flak jacket and they're all kitted out like they're going to war, or like they're going to go, catch the predator, that they are safe to do these things. And they're doing them to off-duty police officers, those who actually did swear an oath to protect people. And he's still there saying, well, it's still legitimate. And this is the problem with like how certain Democratic leaders like Hakeem Jeffries and who was it, Cory Booker, he recently came up with that stupid ass video I played last week where he was saying they need to be trained better. These are Nazis and white supremacists and January 6ers. You can't train out that you believe that you're of a master race. You can't train out that you believe that women are not full people. You cannot train out that you think all Latinos are drug dealers and are violent people. You cannot train out that you can just shoot an uppity woman who's talking to you. You can't train that out. So he's sitting there in disbelief that ICE is accosting people, but he's missing. It's the system that you're a part of. It's a system that you are actively supporting every day when you go to work and you put that badge on, because that's what they gave those non-wealthy white men. They gave them a badge. And this week we just celebrated Martin Luther King's birthday on Monday, and the three evils of the world. We talked about it on Tuesday: materialism, racism, and militarism. Materialism, capitalism; racism, white supremacy culture; and militarism, over policing. And what he doesn't realize that he's a part of a system that was always going to go back and bite him and bite his people and bite what he deems to be so legitimate, because he doesn't have a place in this world. Again, think about the person from your high school that became a cop. Think about that person. Why did they become a lawyer, a doctor, a scientist? They absolutely became police officers because they have the profile of people that the police and military like to exploit, are people that don't have a lot of options, who feel less than, who feel like they need to, exert themselves onto people. Don't forget, 40% of police officers commit domestic violence. So he's sitting there shocked that his black and brown officers are being accosted by this paramilitary group. That's what ICE is. They're a paramilitary group. They're not law enforcement. They're an agency. They are a federal agency, no different from the Department of Education. If you wouldn't let the superintendent of the Department of Education shoot you 3 times in the face, you should not allow an ICE agent to shoot you 3 times in the face. They are no different. And if we can get rid of the Department of Education and gut that out and hollow that out to where it's empty, we can get rid of the Department of Homeland Security, which was created after 9/11, which kind of has that German sounding name. It probably sounds better in its original German, the Department of Homeland Security. That's what we're dealing with. So when people say, it's all good, ICE is just rounding up the bad guys. They're now rounding up the good guys with guns that are supposed to be the good guys with guns we've been told about our whole lives. They're rounding them people up too, harassing them, causing trauma, having the police officers who we're supposed to call if they do cause a problem and they do infringe on our rights. We are supposed to call these people who are also now going to be in fear of the paramilitary. So I have I don't feel bad for that fucking guy, because he's choosing to miss it. And this is what white supremacy does. It allows for those who even continue the mantle of white supremacy to just be aloof and just think these are just bad apples versus a bad system. What I tell people, if you're going to go to a new planet and start a whole new world, a whole new world, I'm going to give you 1,000,000 people. I'm going to give you 1,000,000 people to start a new world. What systems would you bring from America? How we vote, how we live, how we're taught, how we get healthcare, how we have a connection to nature and food. You wouldn't bring any of this shit. You wouldn't bring anything that we currently believe is good. Policing. You wouldn't bring any of this with you if you were starting a whole new civilization. That's a really good test of how fucked up and broken this system is. Not broken, because it's getting the outcomes that it was designed to get, as Dr. Joy DeGruy tells us. Systems are meant to get outcomes. It doesn't matter if there's not a system of systemic racism. It doesn't matter if there's a system full of racists. The system will always get you an outcome which will disproportionately harm one group and privilege another group. But our Democratic leaders are really not meeting the moment, of course, unshockingly. Oh my gosh, this is not charging. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. Oh, okay. There we go. Okay. So some of our Democratic leaders are choosing to fail us. All of them, honestly, all of them. They all feel like they have to back the green. Only 'cause they're not the blue. They have to back this organization that's younger than Shrek, that's younger than everybody listening to this show right now. But I thought this response from the current mayor, we have Zoran Mamdani, who has taken over New York City, elected, inaugurated, and doing the damn thing. All of these pie in the sky ideas they said he couldn't do. First thing he did was go to a tenants union meeting. And he got the governor, who is not a bleeding leftist, a bleeding liberal, to be able to get daycare for everybody who's two and below. 2 and below. So, but check out what Zohran Mamdani said when asked directly, would he abolish ICE?
Well, Mr. Mayor, in light of recent events, there have been renewed calls from prominent Democrats to abolish ICE. I want to know where you come down on abolishing ICE and if you believe that ICE has any legitimate law enforcement role.
You know, I am in support of abolishing ICE, and I'll tell you why. Because what we see is an entity that has no interest in fulfilling its stated reason to exist. We're seeing a government agency that is supposed to be enforcing some kind of immigration law, but instead what it's doing is terrorizing people, no matter their immigration status, no matter the facts of the law, no matter the facts of the case. And I'm tired of waking up every day and seeing a new image of someone being dragged out of a car, dragged out of their home, dragged out of their life. What we need to see is humanity. And there is a way to care about immigration in this city and in this country with a sense of humanity. What we're seeing from ICE is not it, and we have not seen that from them in a long, long time.
So, you know, it's really nice to have you here. You make sense.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, because it's important, you know.
How simple was that? How simple was it to say this organization has strayed far away from its purpose and what its mission statement is? It is terrorizing people. It can't enforce laws if it's breaking laws. It is anti-constitutional, and we don't need it. And I stand for abolishing it. I mean, again, throughout his campaign, I wish I could vote for him in New York City, even though I live in North Carolina. But this is a moment where we're like, do you see how easy that was? And I don't want to hear, well, that's a blue audience in a blue state, in a blue country. He's a blue person. He's a blueberry. No, he's making a moral stance. And the reason, for example, the reason the name of our show is Radical Roots, like the point of being radical, if you're not being called a radical ever in your life, that means you're not being morally consistent. That means you are not standing 10 toes down on some shit, on the side of good. There is a masked paramilitary spreading across the country like a virus, harming people. And he was able to say, I think it needs to go. And then how do you counteract that? You heard Whoopi Goldberg, you make sense. You make sense. He's giving it to Democrats on a platter. How to fight back against this shit. Here you go. Just say this. Just say this. I am for abolishing ICE. What's wrong with that? And if you and I heard Joy Reid say this yesterday, and it's really good, short of hand. If you swap out ICE for Gestapo, does all this shit these Democrats are saying make sense? Like, we know the Republican Party is the pro-fascist party, the white supremacist. I get that. I'm not trying to convert any of those motherfuckers, but just swap out ICE for Gestapo. If you said, the Gestapo just needs better training. Yes, the Gestapo is going door to door. They are throwing pregnant women on their bellies. They are shooting people in the face. The Gestapo just needs better training and more funding. You would be like, what are you talking about? And we have to start being real with what our circumstances are versus the way we envision what America is, because America has never been this moral place. It couldn't be. It couldn't have been a moral place, right? It jumped off. So for Mamdani saying, I think we should get rid of ICE, it makes sense. But then when you contrast that, with the leadership of someone like this guy, guys, what are we going to do here? This is the highest elected Democrat in America.
Sorry, the president opposed the CHIPS and Science Act. Why should he get to take any credit for the jobs that it's creating?
Can I say that we're not looking for one side or the other. We're working together to make this thing happen in the right way.
If this is not a perfect representation of the Democratic Party, then I don't know what is. But here's the so-called leader of the Democrats in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, at a groundbreaking ceremony for one of the projects from the CHIPS and Science Act, something that the majority of the Republicans as well as Trump oppose. And when a reporter asks this Howard Lutnick, guy that was friends with Jeffrey Epstein, but whatever, that question, who jumps in to save him? And this is what I keep trying to tell you guys, whether it's Biden or any other person in Democratic leadership. Republicans care about winning. Democrats care about being seen as bipartisan and working with and appeasing Republicans. He should have had to answer that question. Why is it that all of these Congress people are doing these groundbreaking ceremonies when all of them oppose the bill? But this clown has to jump in to go, we're not talking about that right now. We're doing this bipartisan. But then we still have to sit around and listen to liberals defend the failure of this party and go, they did everything they could.
That's I Am Blakeney. They're a great page to follow on, excuse me, on social media, and they're right. They're right. These corporatized Democrats are more, and this is what Martin Luther King warned us about, right? I read it to y'all on Tuesday. This is what his was the white moderate. I might even read it again because it's so damn good. But this is what he warned us. This is what MLK warned us about. The Hakeem Jeffries, because even though Hakeem Jeffries got skin like me, he upholds a system that that is violent. But the Chuck Schumers and the Gavin Newsoms, excuse me, I'm so sorry. But these are the people. In fact, here, let me read it again for you. First, I must confess that over the last few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner. It is the white moderate, white liberal, the white moderate, who is more devoted to order. Don't do it that way. We have to get a permit. No kings. Devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension. Well, I don't want to seem rude. I don't want to curse while they're killing you, while they call you a fucking bitch after they murder you. I don't want to. Don't. Let's not be mean. Let's go have fun. Let's find joy. Listen to what I'm saying, y'all. This is MLK's words from over 60 years ago, 62 years ago. 63 years ago. Good God. They prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. And the only way to have justice is through truth. The only way to have justice is to raise your head and to raise your voice and to assert your humanity. Who constantly say, these are the white moderates, the white liberals, who will constantly say, I agree with your goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action. Who paternalistically, meaning that they're always telling you what you need to do. They're the paternal, right? They're the father, they're the parent of the situation. Paternalistically feels he can set a timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by the myth of time and who constantly advises the Negro to wait until a more convenient season. That is what you get with a Chuck Schumer. That is what you get with a Dick Durbin. That is what you get with a Kamala Harris. You got to be real. I mean, I voted for Kamala Harris. I'm part of the 80%. But it doesn't mean we can't push the people who are ostensibly on our side to be better. So look at that contrast. You have Mamdani eloquently saying that, yes, let's abolish ICE. It's terrorizing people. Don't you all wake up every day with a pit in your stomach and your lungs tight and your jaws clenched? You see a police car, you don't know if it's a police car, the sheriff, or ICE. This is what we've all been feeling for hundreds of years, some of us. I think about that native quote, get your laws off of me. All this shit that we're acting, oh, this is law enforcement. What do your laws mean to an indigenous person? What do your laws mean to someone who didn't have access to being a full human until 1965? What do these laws mean? I'm enforcing the law. That means you didn't create the law. That means someone else who was wearing a tailored suit in marble-clad rooms behind mahogany desks with opulent lunches created these laws, and then you enforce them. Because you were a nobody in your town. You were a nobody in Podunk, Mississippi. You were a nobody in Levittstown, Pennsylvania. It is you enforce these laws. These laws are meant to create outcomes where they'll harm Black and brown people. You go enforce those laws. But we have this thing in our head when we hear the phrase law enforcement, it almost disarms us. Like, right? And this is, I get so angry when I hear Democrats calling them law enforcement because they're not law enforcement. And what they do is they just they repeat this, and it allows people to say, "Well, I guess they're supposed to do that because they're law enforcement." Who told you someone with a shining star on their chest can murder you? Who told you that's an okay thing? Think about before this country was ever created. Would that make sense to tell someone that someone with a shiny star on their chest and a pow pow machine on their hip can murder you, and they'll go scot free? You would say that's a fucked up system. Again, if you were to create a new civilization on a new planet, what systems would you bring from America? Sit with that. What would you bring from America? Would you bring the policing system? Would you bring law enforcement? Would you bring the education system, the healthcare system? You wouldn't. All right, so that's the preamble. We're gonna get into it. This might be a little long today. Maybe do it 30 minutes. But thanks for the folks who are just joining in. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. The Radical Cruise Podcast, how we stay independent and get the news directly to you, and how we stay independent. But moving on to one more part about this federal crackdown. I don't know if you guys heard the story last night or the day before, but I'm going to play this here. It's disgusting, and this is why I agree with Zoran Mamdani. We must abolish ICE. And if you're a Democrat running, you absolutely should be standing on abolishing ICE. Absolutely.
As of today, 4 of our students, our children, have been detained by ICE.
That is a local school superintendent today saying agents have detained several students. Reg Chapman was at the press conference this afternoon. So, Reg, sort of hard to hear that.
Extremely hard to hear, Aaron. The district says 4 children in Columbia Heights have been detained by ICE. Just yesterday, they say 2 children were detained by ICE, including a 17-year-old on his way to school, taken from his car and taken away. Now, then in the afternoon, a 5-year-old child, Liam Ramos, was taken with his father while on the driveway after just arriving home from his preschool classroom. School officials say the child was used as bait. They say agents made little Liam knock on the door to ask to be let in order to see if anyone else was home.
Why detain a 5-year-old? You can't tell me that this child is going to be classified as a violent criminal. 2 weeks ago, a 10-year-old student, 4th grader, was taken by ICE agents on her way to elementary school with her mother. During the arrest, the child called her father on the phone to tell him that ICE agents were bringing her to school. The father immediately came to the school to find that both his daughter and wife had been taken.
Now, school officials say both children and their parent are being held in a detention center in Texas. They say Liam's family is following U.S. legal.
I mean, if that doesn't impact you, even if you don't have kids, that broke my heart. They used a 5-year-old as bait. They'd already captured, that's what it is, they're capturing people. They captured his father and captured him. And he had this beanie on, like a dolphin beanie with these really cute ties. And they used him to try to pull out his mother. They didn't know if his mother was there or not. How do you not see your child in that child? Who the fuck are you to put your hand on the shoulder of a 5-year-old who was just trying to see his mommy? There's another story of an ICE agent that was raping a woman for months. And if she did not give him sex, he would threaten that she would not see her child. You don't even know about the story. If this is proper procedure, We saw the ICE agent walk behind a woman in a porta potty while she's zip tied. Why would an ICE agent need to walk behind a zip tied woman with her hands behind her back into a porta potty? These are the fucking lowest of the fucking low pigs. And we're sitting here having these fucking Democrats who are supposedly the opposition party tell us, just take a deep breath, go home, just be calm as they're shooting you in the face and dragging you on the stomach and taking your kids. Look, if the party isn't going to, I'm here to fight. If the party isn't going to fight, I'm going to fight the party too. Because you're complicit at this point. And I'm tired of being complicit. We were told during a genocide of the Palestinians, oh, shut up, we're going to get Trump. And it's still going on. Who do you think is teaching these ICE agents? Who do you think they're directors? Because they come from Israel. Derek Chauvin was trained in Israel. So when we say that their struggle is our struggle and it's interwoven, that's what we mean. And we got to start connecting. Right now, we're seeing a lot of talk about the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers were internationalists. They said the plight of the oppressed is our fight because we're all oppressed. You can't look at some people's oppression and say, well, okay, that's a necessary oppression, because that's the same shit they do to us. And Trump and the Trump administration, they want to internationalize ICE. They want to internationalize ICE. What does that look like? That looks like what happened in Venezuela. That we can just come into your shit, kicking you're the president, I don't give a fuck. You and your fucking bitch wife, as Jonathan Ross called Renee Good. We will take you, and guess what? They beat her up. When she was in court in New York City, her face was bruised up. They didn't want to show those pictures because one of those military assholes who are Nazis beat her the fuck up. We have to understand that when Martin Luther King warned about materialism, capitalism, racism, white supremacy culture, and militarism, policing and law enforcement, that this was an absolute, this is where we're going to get to. Come on, he saw it from 63 years ago, before he passed. ICE needs to be abolished, and I don't give a fuck how nice of a candidate is. I'm here in North Carolina, we got Roy Cooper, and everybody's like, well, Roy Cooper's not going to do it. Well, then fuck Roy Cooper. I'm going to fight Roy Cooper. I'm going to fight him. I'm going to loudly say this man doesn't stand for anything. How can I protect your civil rights and rights to health care, rights to abortion, if you're dead? If you've caught 3 to head like Renee Good? How can I fight for your LGBTQ rights? Because she was a queer woman. How can I fight for your rights and queer rights if you're in a gulag in some state separated from your family? How can I? These people are full of shit. And that's not my fault they're full of shit. And if the truth puts it under threat, and if the truth destroys it, then it deserves to be destroyed by the truth. I didn't make these people milk toast and jelly spined. I'm saying they need to stand for something. Again, that Mamdani clip where he eloquently said, this shit needs to go away. All right, pivoting. Second story. World stage, Davos. So the World Economic Forum is happening right now, or I don't know, still going on. You guys could probably tell me. I don't really care. It's a bunch of rich assholes, about 4,000 people. The entry price is like something crazy, like $380,000 to get in. The ticket's $40,000. It's crazy. It's a bunch of rich people basically saying, the wealth of the super rich in 2025 went from like 3 trillion to like 18 trillion. So it's all literally the richest people in the world pantomiming and acting like, oh, how do we help the poor's out? You are all lobbying all these governments across the world to get deregulation and lower taxes and offshore accounts. You're consolidating your power, but then they do all this performative shit. So don't get me wrong. The World Economic Forum is a bullshit event, but there was some news that came out of there. And Canadian PM Carney, I thought, really just let the wool fall, let the veil fall. So I'm going to play that real quick, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
This is a remarkable speech by Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. You should listen to it because it will be quoted for generations to come as historians try to make sense of what we are living through.
In 1978, the Czech dissident Václav Havel, later president, wrote an essay called The Power of the Powerless. And in it, he asked a simple question: how did the communist system sustain itself? And his answer began with the greengrocer. Every morning, this shopkeeper places a sign in his window: "Workers of the world unite." He doesn't believe it. No one does. But he places a sign anyway to avoid trouble, to signal compliance, to get along. And because every shopkeeper on every street does the same, the system persists. Not through violence alone, but through the participation of ordinary people in rituals they privately know to be false. Havel called this living within a lie. The system's power comes not from its truth, but from everyone's willingness to perform as if it were true. And its fragility comes from the same source. When even one person stops performing, when the greengrocer removes his sign, the illusion begins to crack. Friends, it is time for companies and countries to take their signs down. For decades, countries like Canada prospered under what we called the rules-based international order. We joined its institutions, we praised its principles, we benefited from its predictability. And because of that, we could pursue values-based foreign policies under its protection. We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false. That the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient. That trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful. And American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window. We participated in the rituals. And we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality. This bargain no longer works. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination.
Look, to be clear, Mark Carney is no left-winger. He boasted in that.
So yeah, and that this Owen Jones, he's a great journalist. Please follow him on social media. But he's going to start with a good point there. That that's Mark Carney is not a bleeding liberal or he is a liberal, but he's no bleeding leftist. He's no left winger. But what he was saying there, why it was so important, and why I think it ripped the bandage off and it dropped the veil, is because it said that the rules-based order, which was always the white-based order, is over. And what this means was post-World War II, when when Europe bombed itself out due to the World War that for us was across the pond, so a lot of that didn't come home here to us in the States, was that they allowed America to be this kind of overly militarized attack dog. And America could become the king of the throne of kind of the violent bully, as long as they got some of the resources from Black and brown countries, right? So this is where this is where Carney says that some of the outcomes didn't really matter to us, depending on who the assailant or who the person was, but if they were an ally or if they were an adversary, right? Basically saying that we turn a blind eye if it's to black and brown countries. If you want to go bomb and extract oil and resources and bananas and all this shit for other places, that's fine. But what we're saying with Greenland, this is the European hypocrisy on full display. But with that being said, Europe is picking up its toys and turning to a different direction. But they're saying, oh, what you did in Venezuela? We don't give a fuck. Yeah, well, he was a bad guy, bad guy, bad guy, bad guy, bad guy. But you do that to Greenland and our Denmarkians, our the Danish, our friends, our white friends. We won't allow that. He's putting tariffs on us. This is what they've done. This is why, some say imperialism is the highest form of capitalism, because the same thing that they do to poor and black and brown people in this country, they do to other countries, right? Sanction them with high taxes, and they put them in these debt traps and debt loops, and it's really hard to get out, right? You destabilize communities, you traffic in drugs, you over police them, you use your heavily militarized force to exert your hegemony. This is what we're seeing, but now we're seeing the European world and Canada saying, like, you know what, let's go make alliances. And China's sitting there the whole time like, come on, baby, what's up? What y'all need? Think about China's soft power right now in the world, how they are in Latin America, in Africa. Africa has a large amount of young people on the planet, which is, as countries look at their growth potential, they look at youth rates, which makes sense, right? If you have more younger people, you have more chance for potential to grow, and blah, 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 in this capitalistic system. China is heavily investing in Africa. And the difference between what China does versus what the US does, if China goes to, Niger or, some country, Kenya, and says, hey, we'll build these roads, we'll build these airports, we'll build these bridges. Here's this deal. And the government says no. You know what China does? Okay, we'll go back and make another deal. How about this deal? You know what the United States does when a country says no? We fucking bomb you. We fucking bomb you. That is what happens. That is what happens. So as we look at soft power, and folks like Canada, they just signed a deal for economic prosperity with China. People are saying, like, you know what? You have it, United States. You got it. You got it. And he says the economic world order, the rules-based order, which again was always the white-based order, the European-based order, it's over. And not that it needs to be reformed, and once Trump's over, we'll get it back, and it's over. This is what I've been telling people who are like, I'm trying to get this promotion, I'm trying to get this degree. Look, I'm not saying don't try to achieve, but we have to understand the system is already gone. Whatever this hamster wheel you're running on, it is time. It is time to start connecting with people around you. It is time to start understanding you are not your job. It is time to understand that you are not your degrees. You're a person who has dreams and hopes and beliefs and connection to your family and friends and circles and life. That is who you are. And that is the biggest fear to fascism. So it's time for us to lean into that, because they want us to be on that hamster wheel and, oh, let me get this report into Jeff. Well, what the fuck is the urgency? What are we doing here? That's my capitalistic tangent. Sorry about that. But Donald Trump was out there, so yeah, the world-based order is gone. And this is why. Look at this fool. Look at y'all president. Look at y'all president. Look at y'all damn president. Let's see. I think Zateo had a good oh, this was a good one. Here's your president on the world stage, and he's been going on about Greenland, Santa Monica Goebbels, Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller, even posted a picture of Greenland with the American flag behind it, said soon. But let's see how serious the melting orange man, Kenkles McTaco Tits, as the I've Had It podcast calls him. Let's see how he handles it.
So what we have gotten out of NATO is nothing except to protect Europe from the Soviet Union and now Russia. I mean, we've helped them for so many years. We've never gotten anything, except we pay for NATO. And we paid for many years until I came along. We paid for, in my opinion, 100% of NATO because they weren't paying their bills. And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease. NATO, and I've until the last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They called me daddy, right? Last time. A very smart man said, he's our daddy. He's running it. I was like running it. I went from running it to being a terrible human being.
A lot in there. You know, he's sitting there. He clearly doesn't know history, right? He clearly doesn't know why Europe pays the percentage. And yes, could European countries have paid more? Of course. But like the idea that like we're paying all the bills, blah, 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 blah. Again, I said a few minutes ago that this was the deal negotiated in after 1989 with the end of the Cold War. You know, this is born out of the Cold War to stop Russian aggression, supposedly détente with Ronald Reagan. So there's a reason certain people, certain countries were paying less, right? Because they have closer proximity. They need to make sure that they're fortifying their places. And America was saying, well, we'll provide all the big arms, so we'll pay more to make sure that if anything happens to one, it happens to all. And they don't do anything for us. Now, granted, after 9/11, every NATO country came to the aid of America. America is proving to itself that it will one break its treaty, its perceived goal of unity, and then it will dare you to try to harm it. This is the hubris that comes before the fall. This is what happens when you get rid of DEI and wokeness. All you're left with is these fucking losers like Donald Trump, who's going up there and he saw he was confusing the thing that he's been wanting for. We need Greenland. We need the green. We need the Greenland. We need it. And he kept calling it ICEland. And don't forget, y'all, I'm sure I didn't play it, but I didn't show it. But that tweet he had to the Norse prime minister basically saying, well, since you guys didn't give me the Nobel Peace Prize, I shouldn't choose peace, which doesn't even make sense. The logic of that doesn't make sense. The logic of that doesn't make sense. So continuing on with more, he also, of course, you got to do some grade A American racism, right? Like, what would Trump be without some racism? And mind you, he's on the world
situation stage. In Minnesota reminds us that the West cannot mass import foreign cultures which have failed to ever build a successful society of their own. I mean, we're taking people from Somalia, and Somalia is a failed, it's not a nation. Got no government, got no police, got no military, got no nothing. And then we have this fake congressperson who they just reported is worth $30 million. You believe this? Ilhan Omar, talking about the Constitution provides me. She comes from a country that's not a country, and she's telling us how to run America. Not going to get away with it much longer, let me tell you.
I mean, just a racist piece of shit. And anybody that voted for him is also a racist piece of shit. I don't care. I don't care. Yes, they voted for him because of the racism. That's it. And the sexism and the grabbing by the pussy. And I can do what I want because I feel like I've been knocked down in life. And if he can do what he wants, he'll make me feel like I can do what I want. And therefore, we can do what we want. And we want Greenland. That doesn't help me eat. It doesn't help the price of eggs. It doesn't help the price of gas. It doesn't allow anything. But we want Greenland now, damn it. It's fucking ridiculous. But again, there's a lot of big wigs out there. There's another try hard for 2028, Gavin Newscomb, as he calls him. He even had some words for him. See if I find that clip here. Because, you know, Trump, it ain't Trump, baby. unless he's throwing some jeers out.
We can do that all over. We're going to help the people in California. We want to have no crime. I know Gavin was here. I used to get along so great with Gavin when I was president. Gavin's a good guy. And we're going to, if he needed it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd love to see. We did help them a lot in Los Angeles, a lot with the early in my term when they had some problems. But we would love to do it. I will say this, if I were a Democrat governor or whatever, I would call up Trump. I'd say, come on in, make us look good, because we're cutting crime down to nothing. And we're taking people out, career criminals who are only going to do bad things, and we're bringing them back to their countries. But where we've done it, it's been amazing. And we have a capacity to do it at much greater levels.
Oh, my God. I'm just looking at the chat now. Mary Pugak 305. Does anyone even pay attention to him? I try not to. Mind you, this speech that he gave at the World Economic Forum was supposed to be 35 minutes. And from what I understood, it was well over an hour, like well over. I know this show goes over, but you guys are here with me in the comments. I'm talking to y'all. We back and forth with it. This speech, I think, went on for like an hour and a half of him just droning on. And then there's a picture of him holding on to dear life to that podium. Just if that podium was there, he probably would have fell over, because he is just a marionette puppet. He's being propped up just so he's just happy. I'm doing my part that I don't go to jail. I'm thank y'all for reelecting me because I still want to go to prison for the 34 counts and being held liable for E. Jean Carroll and Epstein files. Those Epstein files. This is why I'm not about to take Greenland, because the Epstein files. This is what we're dealing with, folks, on the world stage. And Gavin Newsom was there sitting there. I mean, again, I'm no big fan of Gavin Newsom. He is a neoliberal. He is anti-human. And a lot of times people think, oh, I like what he's doing on social media. But don't forget, like, you're not falling in love with that politician. What you're falling in love with is their social media team. There's probably some black and brown, 20-something-year-old that runs their social media, that has all the right slang and quips. That's what you're hearing. That's what you're liking. Because we saw when we played the clip of him with Ben Shapiro, he's agreeing with Ben Shapiro. He's agreeing with Charlie Kirk. He's agreeing with Steve Bannon. He's questioning Van Lathan and Rachel Lindsay. Do you see how that works? He's aligning with them. Political parties don't matter. Gavin Newsom aligns with Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Steve Bannon. he aligns with them, not on political parties, but he aligns with them on their maleness, on their whiteness, and their wealth. That's all you need to know. But Gavin Newsom's sitting there like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Rightfully so, right? Because, California has the 5th largest economy in the world. I believe when Gavin Newsom became the governor, I think California had the 8th largest economy in the world. So he rose it three points up. Again, capitalism is still a beast and needs racism, sexism, and misogyny. I get it. But that's at least a badge of honor for Gavin Newsom. And then he goes in on Ilhan Omar that Somalia is not a country and that she is basically not a person. She doesn't have much time left. I don't know what kind of veiled threat that is to her. But what are we going to do about this? That's the question. What is the and if you were an opposition party, you would run on this like, look at this sundowning man who is threatening to annex other countries, who is putting all of our lives in danger, has a paramilitary police force out here stealing children. Where is the opposition? And it's coming from the people. The people are out there with their whistles. They're getting pepper sprayed. I seen a video of a gentleman. It was in point blank range. He had 2 ICE officers on his back and one with a probably bear spray, point blank range. These are the fucking January 6ers. So the opposition party is telling us that we need to just maintain their funding. Y'all ain't fucking serious. Y'all got to go. And if this system requires this, and this system got to go. That ain't just me. That's a majority opinion in the country. So when Zoran Mamdani said, I will abolish ICE, or I stand for abolishing ICE, he is standing with the majority of Americans. Don't forget that. Folks, it has been a real one. I didn't get a chance to put too many of the IMs up, but y'all seem to be getting after in the chat. I love that. Lorena and Mary. So glad to have y'all with me all pretty much the whole episode today. Tonight we have a interview going off with someone who's running for Congress. So please tune in for that if you can at 8:30. That'll be banging. But if not, we'll see you all tomorrow. I'm doing another Roots Rundown tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock Eastern time. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the Radical Roots podcast. That's how we stay independent. That's how we get the news directly to you. We cannot do this without you all. Thank you all. Where this platform is growing. Thank you for telling your friends about us. Thank you for commenting. It all helps us with the algorithm, and we would not be who we are without you all. So thank you all, and you all have a great Thursday. Peace.